Wonderful. Okay, I actually have a question in my pocket. How's that? And it's not directed to any particular representative, so whoever would like to field a question, feel free to do so. The question, and I did not write this question before I read it, so everybody understands. Why do the laws protect the banking industry in regards to the condo associations? In the wider vision of this practice, who's taking it? Okay. In the wider vision of this practice, the cost is only passed down to the other members, lowering the property values, creating more foreclosures, and lowering tax base for the state and counties. This practice appears to be a short-sighted approach to the problem and only creates more downward pressure on the bank's inventory of more properties. So overall, I think the summary of the question is, the person that wrote it feels that the banking industry is being favored, associations being left in the cold, and they're sort of simply promoting their own product. But I'll let you interpret that.
A lot of first-hand experience with this, so I can tell you that first of all, I feel very strongly about this issue, and we do need to hold the banks responsible for carrying. We are carrying the people who live in the associations, paying for the deadbeats, and ultimately the banks that are going to take over these units. They're carrying their collateral, they're insuring it. And I've had several conversations with the banks, the people that run the banks in Florida. They understand how serious I am about this. And I was just talking to them last week about it. You have to understand the banks see this as a financial issue for them. And we don't want to put any more money out to maintain these condominiums. But, and again, my comment back to them is, fine, you have some limits on your liability, but at some point you have to pursue getting these units foreclosed and get them back into the working inventory to pay for everybody else that's been carrying it. So I feel very strongly about this. The banks are a very powerful interest in Tallahassee, and this is why it's important that we have a group like this and grassroots organization and effort and pressure, frankly, to overcome that. So that's why it's difficult. The banks are opposed to taking on additional liability, but they do understand, and the people I've talked to understand the fairness argument about why this is going on for years now. So this is something we're going to take on next year again. I'm not sure the exact specific detail what's going to happen. Many of the attorneys I've talked to, such as Donna, think that maybe there should be some incentives to finish these foreclosures off. How about the special assessments that get levied? So there are places to go, but I can tell you it is a very intense fight, and some of the things we try to get in this year that were opposed by the banks, we weren't able to frankly move forward on them. So it's one of the things about being a freshman is you do learn the groups that have a lot of influence, and so this is something I'm a lot more prepared to take on for next year's legislation.
Donna just handed me a question, and Lee just handed me a question. So who do you think trumps? Oh boy.
Thank you for your support.
Well, Donna's question. How do you think that the insurance package, SB 408, will help or hurt consumers?
Question on the panel.
There's no question, and I love taking these types of questions. It's a no-win situation. 408 is going to do one thing. It's going to cost people more money. The concept has to be looked at and looked at it within the context that in 1992, when Hurricane Andrew struck, the insurance companies were devastated in terms of what they have to pay out because it was a catastrophic event. And so what they did is they came to the legislature and they said to the legislature, if you allow us to form public companies in the state of Florida, we will give you a stable insurance market. Well, the state went ahead and they said, okay, great, just whatever you have to do, just make sure all the claims are paid on a timely basis and we can go on with the work of the state. And so State Farm, which was, and I don't mean to pick on any one company, which was in Bloomington, Illinois, which insured people, now became State Farm of Florida, and so on and so forth. And all the companies did the same thing. So their liability, potential liability, was greatly decreased in the sense that they no longer had the deep pockets of the parent companies. So now, we've been playing catch-up ever since, because the Florida insurance market is a very challenging market. They always tell you it's a very complicated market. The Florida insurance market and all markets are based on one thing. It's called the law of large numbers. And the concept is the more people you can insure, the less likelihood there is that you're going to go broke. And that you'll be able to, because if something happens up in Tallahassee and it's not happening in South Florida, then the folks in Tallahassee pay. You all understand the concept of the law of large numbers. Well, the insurance rates just keep going up and up because of various factors, including the fact that reinsurance rates keep going up. And you can't answer this question in 30 seconds or in a minute. But the reality is that they've got to come to actuarially sound rates. Now, what the heck does that mean? That means so that the insurance companies can make a profit. But that's a funny number also, because the insurance companies have put so much fat into what they're doing. For instance, the State Farm of Florida will buy their reinsurance from State Farm of Illinois, and they mark it up. And all along the way, things are being marked up. There was a proposal a few years ago that Representative Priscilla Taylor and I had worked on that would take the one issue, which is windstorm. That's the only thing that is unquantifiable. And utilizing the law of large numbers, produce a package where every single person living in the state of Florida who had a home would have to buy windstorm from the state. And every other part of the insurance from $1 would be borne by individual companies. And the individual companies would take 20% of that risk, so they'd have skin in the game when they would go ahead and make the adjustments because of any catastrophic events. So they'd be using their own money as well, so they wouldn't be as generous, let us say, in giving things out. They would give out exactly what they were supposed to give out, but that never went anywhere. So what we have is kind of a patchwork of things, because then we formed Citizens, and Citizens was supposed to be just for those people that could not find insurance anyplace else. And then all of a sudden Citizens became, it was the insurer of last resort. Now Citizens has become the largest insurer of the state of Florida, and each one of us, whether we want to or not, is a shareholder in Citizens. Whether you have a policy or not, if Citizens faces a catastrophic loss, and you have a car or any kind of insurance policy other than workers' comp or one other, which I keep forgetting, liability? MedMal. You're going to be paying for it. Thank you. See, there is bipartisanship. So and so now they found these little companies they call takeout companies. And because Citizens was having so many policies, they wanted to get rid of some of them. And so they had all the takeout companies, and they've come along, and some of these companies have gone out of business without even a hurricane. And now we have a whole new thing called sinkholes. And now we have a whole new industry called public adjusters. Went from a few hundred to thousands. And all of that is costing Floridians more money. So now we've got SB 408. And 408 allows for certain increases, but it also reins back the number of years you can open a policy. I don't know if any of you have received notices from public adjusters in 2010 saying, you can still reopen, I can get you more money for your claim. And they reopened thousands of claims and cost hundreds of millions of dollars to the people in the state of Florida. Okay, so they reined that in somewhat. So there are a lot of very good things in SB 408, limits, a lot of stuff having to do with sinkholes, and a lot of things, but there is a 15% increase. So it's going to definitely, that's what I said at the beginning, it's going to wind up costing Floridians more money. But at the end of the day, hopefully, somewhere along the line, it's going to create a stable market. So that it's a question of pay now or pay later. But one way or another, Floridians are going to be on the hook. So hopefully, this is going to be a bill that's going to do some good. Only time will tell. We're just going to have to wait and see. And if it doesn't work, if it becomes very problematic, you can always come in and try to tweak it as well. Thank you. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's
Representative,
I don't know if there is an answer.
Thank you very much. Representative Hudson.
Thank you, and I think we'll find some bipartisanship on this particular issue, but I kind of break it down this way, and when I talk about insurance, we've got obviously a challenge in Florida. So